Dear students, I welcome you to this lecture. It is all about programmed instruction. Before we proceed, let us have a look on the objectives of this lecture. Understanding the nature of programmed instruction, understanding the basic principles of programmed instruction, understanding the merits and demerits of programmed instruction, and to see what are the measures to be incorporated in order to improve the limitations. Programmed instruction is a new strategy of teaching. This method of teaching is an individualized strategy for the modification of behavior. It is based on psychological principles of operant conditioning. It is used for instructional purposes, but it can also be employed as a feedback device for improving teaching efficiency. The theoretical knowledge of programmed instruction is essential to use it as feedback device for the modification of teacher behavior. The origin of the modern programmed instruction is from the psychology of learning and not from technology. It is application of operant conditioning learning theory to teaching learning situation. Programmed instruction has been defined as a method of giving individualized instruction in which the student is active and proceeds at his own pace and is provided with immediate knowledge of result. The physical presence of teacher is not essential in this strategy. This is a technique of learning in which learner goes forward himself in the process of learning. Thus, it has contributed a lot in reducing the load of a teacher in formal educational system. This technique is basically developed by B.F. Skinner. The technique is fundamentally based on the principle of reinforcement and self-learning, that is, based on the theory of trial and error and operant conditioning. Students, also there are different styles of programming like linear, branching, and mathematics. Our main focus shall be here on linear programming. Programmed learning is the change in the response of the behavior brought about through the use of material built into a carefully organized sequential system. It refers to utilization of teaching machines, program text, and computer programming in order to achieve prescribed learning or behavioral modification objectives. Leith is of the opinion program is a sequence of small steps of instructional material called frames, most of which require a response to be made by completing a blank space in a sentence. To ensure that expected responses are given, a system of queuing is applied, and each response is verified by the provision of immediate knowledge of the result. Such a sequence is intended to be worked at the learner's own pace as individualized self-instruction. Susan Markel has given a wider definition of programmed instruction. It is a method of designing a reproducible sequence of instructional events to produce a measurable and constant effect on behavior of each and every acceptable student. Programmed learning is designed as a strategy in which various kinds of intellectual, emotional, and motor experiences are provided to the learner in a controlled situation through a variety of devices like a book, teaching machine, teacher, radio, and television, etc. The main focus is to bring desirable change in the cognitive domain of the learner's behavior. The structure of teaching method is that the selected content is analyzed and broken into smaller elements. Each element is independent and complete in itself. The programmer develops frames based on each element. Responses are also provided to the learner in the program on some different leaflets. The correct response of the learner is the new knowledge or new behavior. Immediate confirmation of correct response provides reinforcement to the learner and he proceeds to the next frame. Wrong responses require feedback. Physical presence of the teacher is not necessary. He may come to give instructions regarding the program. Students are left for learning at their own pace. Principles of programmed instruction. Programmed instruction or model of learning is based on certain basic principles. These 6 principles include: number 1, principle of small sequential steps. The content matter which is to be presented in a program is thoroughly analyzed and divided into meaningful but sequential segments of information. Only one segment of information is presented to the learner at a time. This small segment of interrelated information is called a frame. Principle of immediate confirmation. When the student answers a question after reading a frame, his answer is immediately confirmed with the help of the key. If his response is correct, it is confirmed by the key. This gives immediate feedback to the learner, and the reinforcement obtained by him increases the possibility of further correct responses. On the contrary, if the answer given by the learner is wrong, he is corrected by the key. This makes the learner more cautious in future and he reads the frame more carefully next time. Necessity of providing feedback or immediate confirmation is important from 2 points. Number 1, in any systematically developed program, the learner will not wildly guess. Number 2, when the learner is unsure of his response, he needs it to be confirmed or corrected, and whenever he is wrong but thought he was right. Number 3, principle of active responding. In this type of instruction, one frame is attached to the next frame in such a manner that student is compelled to answer the question of the frame and go ahead. In this way, he is never able to separate himself from the learning process. It is not possible for him to skip any frame, even if he desires so. For example, if we present any such frame before the student that is very tough or boring for him, and the student ceases to go ahead, his will be considered the failure of the program. We have anyhow to transform difficult frames into easy ones. 4th point, principle of self-pacing. In programmed instruction, all the learners do not learn collectively and with the same speed. Every learner rather learns according to his own speed and ability. No restriction is put on the learning process of students in this method. The learner can proceed at his own rate. If he intends to stop and think for a while, he may do so without any fear of disparaging remarks from his classmates or from the teacher. Thus, undesirable mediating conditions are minimized. If he is a fast learner, he can forge ahead. A satisfying experience for him because there is no one to think that he is showing off, and his success does not penalize others with lower marks. Number 5th, student testing. To what extent the instruction program is successful depends on the progress and achievement of students. When learners go on the programmed material, the teacher constantly observes and assesses them. Through his process, he finds out the weaknesses or strengths of his program. For example, if there is such a frame in the program on which no learner is successful, this frame will be considered a bad frame and it will be eliminated from the program. This elimination is necessary because if all the students are unsuccessful on a frame, they will stop going ahead on the program, and thus the whole purpose of programmed instruction will be defeated. Programmed learning or programmed instruction is a research-based system which helps learners work successfully. This method is guided by research done by a variety of applied psychologists and educators. The learning material is in a kind of textbook or teaching machine or computer. The medium presents the material in a logical and tested sequence. The text is in small steps, and after each step, learners are given a question to test their comprehension. Then immediately the correct answer is shown. This means the learner at all stages makes responses and is given immediate knowledge of result. This knowledge of result is defined as feedback of information to a subject about the correctness of his or her response. Feedback describes the situation where a subject gets information which helps him or her to change behavior in a desirable way or to gain understanding. Let us know about the advantages of programmed instruction. Number 1, the main emphasis is on individual differences and students' involvement. Number 2, learners will work individually. The third one, there is not fixed time interval for learning. Students may learn and proceed at their own pace and at time convenient to them. A solo learner is not embarrassed. Fourth one, this offers a method of teaching project leaders and others in local communities. Number 5, learning by doing. Maxim of teaching is followed to involve learners in the learning process. Point number 6, students are exposed only to correct responses. Therefore, possibility to commit errors is reduced. Point number 7, immediate confirmation of the results provides reinforcement to the learners and encourages the learners to proceed further. Feedback is provided to wrong answers so that learner is able to develop mastery over the content. Point number 8, those who set up programmed instruction units may be motivated to plan their efforts more deliberately and more thoroughly than with traditional teaching. Point number 9, it may be less complicated to keep materials in current programmed instruction unit than it is to update in a textbook. Point number 10, programmed materials can be prepared for and adapted to fit almost any local situation related to nationality, economic or cultural variations in a community. 11th point, materials can be exchanged from country to country and from state to state, giving flexibility and variety to extension offering. Now let us see some of the disadvantages of programmed instruction. Number 1, it is very difficult to develop an instructional program. Number 2, the preparation of programmed instruction material is time demanding. Many hours are usually required to produce a unit. Number 3, only cognitive objectives can be achieved. Number 4, due to tight schedule of timetable, students cannot be left to learn at their own pace. It would be very difficult to learn the content, the subject matter in a limited period of time. Number 5, there is no chance for students' creativity. Their responses are highly structured. Point number 6, development of program is not economical in terms of cost and time. Point number 7, in absence of the teacher, students may spoil the disciplinary tune of the class, or they will be helpless when any problem arises. Point number 8, It cannot be applied at primary level of education or at higher education. Point number 9. The extension teacher must keep in touch with their students working on units and let them know he is interested in progress and keeping in touch. This may be difficult in some cases, like in case of high rate of competition. Point number 10. The technique may be new to the particular students and they may not complete units satisfactorily because they don't understand program instruction adequately. 11th point. Programmed instruction done on an individual basis at students' home or offices would likely have to be limited to the linear type of programming. While this could be effective, it may not have the potential that more sophisticated computers would have. Point number 12. The problem of teacher motivation, one of the human factors in programmed learning, must be given attention if this method is to succeed. Students, let us know some of the suggestions which could be incorporated in order to improve the limitations. Number 1, a programmer should have thorough knowledge of the content and technique of content analysis. Number 2, this strategy should be used as a supplementary device for remedial teaching in the classroom. Number 3, it should be used in distance education or continuing education programs where no rigid timetable is applied. Number 4, if not at primary level or higher level of education, this strategy may be useful at secondary level of education where many new subjects are introduced in the curriculum and they create problems in learning. Number 5, if applied in classroom teaching, teacher should be present in the class. He can maintain discipline in the class and help in eradicating the difficulties of the learners. Personal touch of the teacher can be more fruitful and effective in students' learning. Dear students, to conclude, let us make an emphasis on the following points. The development of programmed instruction is based on the findings of E.L. Thorndike and extensive research on operant conditioning advanced by the American psychologist B.F. Skinner. Programming is related with the findings of Thorndike, law of effect, as the instructional psychology does use teaching machines which present finely graded series of problems and provide immediate reinforcement for the learner's correct response. B.F. Skinner, on the basis of his extensive research on rats and pigeons, developed the theory of operant conditioning. Operant conditioning deals with the principle of reinforcement to change behavior in successive approximation to a prefixed desired goal. By putting the principles of operant conditioning in teaching to human beings, he developed a different type of teaching machine. He evolved a teaching learning model which is popularly known as programmed instruction. Programmed instruction is viewed as a process of arranging material to be learned in a series of small steps by presenting either in a book form or through a machine designed to lead a learner through self-instruction from what he knows to the unknown of new and more complex knowledge and principles. Principles of small steps, immediate confirmation, active responding, self-facing, and student testing are the basic principles of programmed instruction. Programmed instruction has innumerable advantages over the traditional methods of learning, like that learning is more rapid, enjoyable, adapted to individual differences, directed towards specific objectives, and retained in a better way for a longer period with less forgetfulness. Students, it was all for today's lecture. Hoping that you might have enjoyed the session. Thank you.